There's been so much discussion about how the new sulfur caves should look like, and since the devs are looking for feedback, I thought it would be fun if I share my own vision of what the sulfur caves should look like. So let's go. I need to change to the newest snapshot. I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm in the newest snapshot. Side note, the game looks so dead without shaders. This is so sad, but okay. There's supposed to be some sulfur caves underneath. It just kind of sucks that I can't see any sulfur springs on the surface, but either way, they're super tiny, so we're gonna do our own thing. And underneath here, this is where the sulfur springs are supposed to spawn. This is about the biggest area that I can find. Let me see if I can find another one. Okay, this is definitely the one. I kind of wish all of them would be open like this, but oh well. Let's go on the surface, and I'm pretty sure we don't have any of the sulfur springs either, so we're gonna have to do that on our own, but let's go underneath. Okay, so what I want to do with a cave, I want to reference this person on Twitter, and I like what they have to say about what they want personally for the sulfur cave. So I'm gonna use the grading that they showed, which goes from stone, then tuff, cinnabar, sulfur, calcite, and then the pools, because I do think it would be really nice if we had another source of calcite that was at least a bit more common. I'll try to follow their idea and also like add my own twist on it. My main issue so far is that it's very gray. We have a lot of patches of stone everywhere. It just really feels disconnected. Like the coolest part is right here, because that's where we have the most color. So I'm gonna try to make this a lot more uniform. I know this section is not technically part of the sulfur cave, but I like the generation more, so I'm gonna spread it over on this side. Let's do a before and after from this corner right here. So a quick before, a few blocks of cinnabar later, and this is the after so far. I mainly just replaced all of the stone with cinnabar, and I really hope they get rid of all of the diorite, granite, and the site, because they were really messing up with the biome. I just feel like they disrupt the feeling of the entire biome. I know it's a lot of red. I'm gonna add a bunch more yellow, but for now we just have this entire thing just solid cinnabar. I think I'm gonna focus on transitioning the sulfur cave to the normal cave, but I'm mainly done to transition the blocks. I've been using the stone layers themselves, so I think I could have blended it a little bit better over here. I'm gonna use like these separate layers to blend them together, and I also want to give it a more organic shape instead of just having it end in like a sharp line. I think I did it better over here, so we have like an organic shape going around here, and you can see that I used the different layers in the stone to give it a bit more shape. So I think that's what I'm gonna do, and I'm also going to add some tuff like that person on Twitter said. I know a lot of people didn't want tuff because it is annoying and it's quite abundant, but I do like the idea of using it as a transition between the cinnabar and the stone. I would use it almost like a small ring in between both blocks like this, and it gives a better transition for sure. So I'm gonna go along the edges of the entire biome, and hopefully that looks better. So I'll be right back. I think I'm pretty much done with the tuff. I think most areas are 2 blocks, but there are a lot of areas where I did 3, and you can really see the blob shape that I was talking about. And I also got rid of a lot of diorite that was in between, just because it messes up with the transition. So I just really want everything to be a lot cleaner. But other than that, I think we can move on to making more pools, because I think it's something that a lot of people want. This entire area right here was naturally generated, and we don't have a lot of pools. Like we have one right here, another one right there, and then this area right here is all waterlogged, so you don't even get to see it when it's all open like this. So I want to add a bunch more pools like this one. I want to make them bigger and in various sizes, because we only have like these little tiny pools, which are fine, but I think they could be a lot better. And then from there we can add the calcite accordingly. I also want to have some of them like connect to each other. I think that would look pretty nice. And since Mojang isn't really adhering to what a sulfur cave looks like in real life, I'm gonna take the chance to be a bit more creative with this. So let's just cover all of this up, and that will be one of the pools that I want to have. So that's the basic shape. I want to make it at least like 2 blocks deep, so just sort of following the shape that I already had. And this is where I'm gonna bring in some of the calcite finally. And then what actually makes it bubble is, I mean, I'm gonna use that one, but I think this one is the one that actually makes it bubble. As you can see, everything else is sulfur except for that block right there. If I replace it with normal sulfur, I think everything just disappears. So I at least want to add maybe like 1 or 2 of these, because it does take up quite a large area. First things off with the calcite, I want to add this on the edges, on the very edge of this entire pool. Okay, sort of like this, and I want to add a few more just on the edges, maybe just extending it by 1 or 2 blocks really, just so it's literally not just a line on its own. So maybe a couple over here on the ground. Okay, yes, I think I really like that. And I want to bring some of the calcite towards the inside, so just like I did for the outside, but just like inverted. Yeah, okay, I think I like that. And then the rest of it is just going to be sulfur. I know the water is already like a little bit more tinted green compared to like normal water, but I think adding the yellow underneath is really going to make it look green. Also the sounds, I really like the sounds that they added. The cinnabar kind of reminds me of like deep slate. This is how it's looking like. Let's fill it up with water now. Ooh, okay. I really like how it's looking like. Add a few of the potent sulfur. 2 will be sufficient. Yeah, I think that's good. And now that we have the actual pool, I can start blending the outside edges with some sulfur. Kind of like this going all the way around. This one's like next to a wall right here, so maybe I can spread it up a tiny bit like this. I think my main issue with how the sulfur right now is placed, you can only find it around the pools like this, or kind of just like in veins throughout with some like random blobs. And I don't hate it. I just want it to look more organized. I think that cleaning it up a little bit is going to make it look way better. So this is a plan. I'm gonna go ahead and do that for the other areas. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I just fixed this one, but I wanted to show you what I also wanted to do. I also want to have the water pools almost like invading each other. So this entire area is going to be water, way bigger than this one. And it's almost like creeping up towards the pool right here. So hopefully I explain myself. I'm just gonna finish this and hopefully you can see the proper vision that I have in my head. I started making this one over here. You can kind of see the shape that I'm forming, but I wanted to show you how this one looked like. I think this one's by far my favorite one, and they all have way more water than what we currently have in the snapshot. And I also feel like adding a bunch of more water just makes it feel a little more lively. I feel like this biome is supposed to be very colorful. Just with the bright yellow and red that they chose, it just stands out so much more inside of all of the grayness that we have in normal caves. So I at least want to add more color, and I feel like the calcite really does it. And what I'm planning for this one on the side, I kind of had to build up some of the wall right here, but I'm thinking of making a tiny hole where I can have a waterfall, because I really do like the colorful waterfalls that form right here where the waterlogged cave is. So I'm gonna try to transfer that vibe over here with the small pools and see how that looks like. Okay, so I just finished this pool. I think the waterfall, I want it to be like here maybe, yeah, and that can kind of float down over here. I think once I'm finished with all the pools, I'm gonna focus on cleaning up some of the random sulfur that we have, like these tiny little blobs right here. And I also want to add some of these, I have no idea what they're called. Oh, sulfur spikes. But yeah, I want to add them throughout just because I have been ignoring them so far. And then maybe I can add another pool like over here, maybe another one over there. I don't know. I'll be right back when everything is done. I just finished adding all of the pools that I wanted. This was my favorite one, but I think this area right here looks so good. Like this one over here, it was more of an accident, but I really like how it flows into each other. We already had this one. I just made it look like the other ones, and then I made one next to it that also connects with the water. I feel like it makes it look like an ecosystem instead of just having pools randomly. And then this one right here, I added it because I wanted to bring in some of the waterlogged cave that is behind that wall. So I added a few waterfalls that connect to this little pool. I think I'm gonna focus on cleaning up some of the sulfur, but also adding some other blobs of sulfur around, just because this entire area looks way too red. Right now they don't really look that organized. Like this entire area right here is pretty messy. So I'm gonna clean that up, and I'm also gonna add some patches of the sulfur spikes. I think I'm mainly gonna focus that on the ceiling, and then just have some blobs of the sulfur along with the spikes around the sulfur pools, just so it looks like it's really coming from the water. So that's what I'm gonna do mainly, but I first want to really clean up all the sulfur. So I'm gonna start doing that and I'll be right back. Okay, it took way longer than expected, but so far we only have sulfur where the water is, and I want to extend it a tiny bit so they connect all together. So for these pools that are really close together, I want to blend them into each other. So maybe I'll blend it in like this sort of and connect it all together, and then this entire area right here, I'm going to replace it with the sulfur. Again, with this part, I think we can connect it sort of like that and just replace the center, and it should look like this. So we have more of a cohesive area for the sulfur. I'll try to make a more cohesive blob around all of these pools and see how that looks like. I kind of want to connect these two together. They're kind of far apart. I think we can extend the blob so it thins out towards the center, kind of like this, almost like an hourglass shape. Can you see the vision? Like womp and womp. And then we can just fill this in with some of the sulfur. And since this is a spike that connects all the way to the ceiling, I think I'm gonna extend it a little bit, going up a few blocks like this, just so it looks like it's blending in towards the top. Okay, I think that looks good. We connected these two pools together. All the ones that are over here, we have like 5 in this general area. I just want to add a few more pockets of sulfur just where there isn't really any. So like around here, everything's so red. Maybe I can add like a good blob of sulfur right here, kind of like that. I just followed the same terrain shape, and then we can just fill it in with some sulfur. There we go. And I think this is where I want to include some of the spikes. Right now I have the tick speed at 0, so it doesn't grow. Going all the way down, and then some of these tiny spikes too. I concentrated most of the long ones towards the center and then made them smaller towards the edges. I also want to add some spikes next to the water, so I have some here already. I almost want them to contour the edge of the pool, so just a few around the edges. I only did a few over on this side, but can you see the vision? I think it's looking pretty good so far, so I'm just gonna repeat that same process and I'll show you how it looks like when I'm finished. Okay, I think I just finished. I just want to do the after like I did before. Reminder, this is how it previously looked like. I think it was around this angle, so this is the after. And I do think it looks so much better this way. We have a bunch more water pools. Let me go back to my normal FOV. But you can see how I connected a bunch of the pools with the sulfur. I added a bunch more spikes and you can see all the blobs that I added. Mostly towards the ceiling because it was looking really red. So I added a bunch more spikes everywhere. Some blobs that connected to each other. So I really do like it so far. Look at it. It looks so good. I turned off the mob spawning because the sulfur cubes were being really annoying. So let me see it with the sulfur cubes all spawned in. Okay, yeah, there we go. It looks so much better this way. I don't know. I feel like I could kind of believe that this could be added. I think I'm being very hopeful, but look at them. They're having fun. So I think with that should be the cave all done. I just want to do the springs because what they have right now is so sad. If you haven't seen it, this is how the sulfur springs are supposed to look like, but only one of those are supposed to spawn. Those mounds of sulfur are the geysers that they added, and I am excited that they added them, but I do think that it looks a bit sad. I don't think I even have any up here, but there's supposed to be like a geyser, almost like an azalea tree, and it leads down to the sulfur cave. I think what I want to do is more like a microbiome. So have this area right here where the grass is kind of shift from being lush towards more of like a dead stony area and then transition it to the actual hot spring. So I'm thinking that transition is going to be from grass just from the normal generation to some coarse dirt so it looks a little bit more dead, and then into some gravel just to make it in between the tuff that I want to place, and then we can transition onto the cinnabar, then the sulfur, and then the calcite, and then the water. So I know it's a lot of blocks, but I think it's really needed to transition everything, and I get why they want to make it tiny so it spawns in any biome, but it's just so sad. I feel like they can do something way different, and I want to cover like maybe this area right here. So I think I'm gonna start off with the pools. I know that it sounds like I'm doing it backwards, but I find it a little bit easier to transition the blocks this way. So I want to do pools sort of like how I did inside the caves, so maybe just something like this, nothing too special. So I'm gonna do that and I'll show you bits and pieces of what I'm doing. I haven't added in the water because I do want to add some of the geysers. I think I'm gonna do one geyser on each one. So the way that you do it is just a magma block, then a potent sulfur, and then you cover that up with water. I think the more water that you add on top, the bigger the geyser is. So this one is just gonna be like too deep. So I don't know how long it takes. Maybe I'll just add like one more potent sulfur so there's a bit more bubbles. I don't know how long it takes for the geyser to show up. I can see the bubbles. Oh my god, that's way higher than I expected. Okay, that's pretty good. Let me do that same thing over here. So magma, potent sulfur, and then this is going to be water. Okay, that's how it looks like so far. Oh my god, there's okay. Maybe I do like it. It looks so much better. I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't that. Okay, so let's add another pool. I think I want to do one more. I think instead of doing like small pools, I want to do one bigger one. I wanted to add one of the big geysers, so it has to be 3 blocks deep. I have no idea if it goes even further, but I know that I can go 3. So 1 over here, so it's gonna be 1 layer, 2, and then 3 over here. Okay, that's it. I changed it so this one is smaller, this one's 2 blocks, and then this one's 3. I just want to add a few more potent sulfur, maybe just like 2 like this, so we have a bunch of the bubbles. Maybe 3 actually. I'm gonna add another one over here. Last thing I want to do before I transition everything, I want to place some sulfur formations, like a few mounds or rocks. Oh, and I forgot, I wanted to break a little one right here. Maybe we can do 2 just so it's not like so shallow. Okay, that's good. Let me just do some formations with the sulfur. I think I'm gonna add like 2 right here, another 2 over this way, sort of like this maybe. Build that up a couple of blocks, and then blend that in with the rest of the terrain. I also want these to have water inside, so not a lot, just like a little tiny pool like this. Okay, I think I want to add one over here. This one can be slightly bigger. Yeah, okay, I really like that. Let's start transitioning the sulfur into the cinnabar and then the other stones. Okay, I think I'm pretty much done with the cinnabar, so I'm gonna follow that up with some tuff, then some gravel, then some coarse dirt. I think I have a few more ideas that I want to do, who knows. So let me finish all of this transition transitioning and I'll be right back. Okay, so I just added the tuff and added some of the gravel too. For the gravel, you can see I left a bit more spots in between with some grass. I'm gonna replace those with some coarse dirt just so we can start transitioning into the grass. And I also added these like kind of wall areas. I don't know how to explain it, but these little like rock formations where the tuff and the cinnabar meets, and I did it all throughout a circle. I feel like it just makes it look like it's part of the ground and not just like a texture on top. So this is how it's looking like so far. It's a lot bigger than I expected, to be honest, but hopefully if they do add something like this into the game, maybe they can do it on a smaller scale, but still like its own microbiome type of thing. So I'm gonna move on to placing the coarse dirt. That's the last step for the transitioning that I'm gonna do. So I'll be right back to decorate. To decorate, I don't really want to do that much because it is supposed to be mostly dead, but luckily we do have dead bushes, so I want to add those throughout. I also want to add some leaf litter, and then because this is supposed to spawn anywhere in the world, not really just in a plains biome like this one, what I would do if there were trees around, I would have the ones that are closest to the springs, and it's just like a stump like this, low-key like here, Brian, and just have them be really sparse along the edges of the geyser. I forgot that we also have some fallen trees now. I'm so used to this just being on bedrock, but we can add some of those too. Okay, that's pretty good. I wanted to add some of the dead bushes. I'll concentrate that mostly where the coarse dirt is. So over here, there we go. You can barely tell I placed them, but they're there. And for the leaf litter, I want to place those just around the tree a little bit, just so it looks like at one point there were some actual living trees in here. Again, I think I did go a little bit too overboard with the size, but I did say that I wanted to make it like a microbiome, so I think it kind of fits. Just imagine this with shaders and I feel like it would look so much better, to be honest, but it doesn't look bad just in the vanilla game. And look, with the geyser and stuff, that's so cool. I have no idea if it's too much of a reach, but a girl can dream. And then through the bottom where we have the actual sulfur caves, this is how it looks like. I wish the water were the same color. I would really like if this had like a tinge of green. It would look so much better and colorful too. Let's go downstairs. Downstairs, is that what you say? But whatever. This is how the caves looks like. I think this is my favorite part. It's obviously the main part of the update. I think the only criticism that I have, like at least for myself, maybe it is a little bit too much cinnabar. I just wouldn't know how to fix it without having it messy and sparse like how we have it right now. Because in the latest snapshot, which is this one, you can see it was mixed up with a bunch of stone and the other types of stones too, like diorite, andesite, and granite. It was just too much and it didn't look like a uniform biome. At least this way it does, but I have no idea if it's too much cinnabar. So luckily I'm doing this as a discussion, and if you have more ideas that you want to share, I would love to talk about it in the comments, since again Mojang is looking for some feedback on how the sulfur cave should look like. So this is my interpretation of what that person on Twitter, I have no idea what their name is, but I'll put it on the screen, and with some of my own stuff added too, like the sulfur springs, and actually just brought into life. So again, let me know your thoughts, what you like, what you don't like. It was pretty fun just doing this, literally for the love of the game. So yeah, this is my formal petition. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next video.